Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbalwe in Abuja tonight. My guest comes with a very strong resume and a profile that match perfectly for the topic that we'll be talking on tonight. A two-time governor, a former senator, a former minister, and we shall attempt at having a conversation that should help the polity glean from his wealth of knowledge and experience. But before we get into it, everyone, let me give you some details on the ECOWAS leaders meeting held today in Abuja, where the president, Bola Tinubu, has been speaking about the Ghanaian election and what the world needs to learn from that. At the meeting, President Bola Tinubu has asked leaders of the economic community of West African state, ECOWAS, to emulate Ghana's democratic practice following a successful presidential and parliamentary elections in the country. Former President John Mahama was re-elected to lead Ghana once again last Saturday, defeating the incumbent Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia, who called to congratulate the winner and even before the official results were declared. In his opening speech at the 66th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government in Abuja earlier today, President Tinubu, who is the chair of that meeting, says that what happened in Ghana is worthy of emulation by other countries in the region. Take a listen.
One of the leading candidates who happens to be the incumbent vice president, His Excellency Mahmoud Bawumia, together with the leadership of the ruling party, New Patriotic Party, NPP, considered defeat and accepted the outcome of the presidential election by congratulating the president-elect, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama of National Democratic Congress, NDC, for his victory. Even before the official announcement of the election result, I congratulate the President Nana Akufo-Addo and the people of Ghana for the successful election and urge all of us in the region to learn from this good democratic practice and prioritize our country's national unity to ensure political stability of the region.
That's President Bola Tinubu earlier today addressing the leaders of ECOWAS. And of course, we do know that Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali might officially be out, their membership in the ECOWAS will cease from January next year. So let's get to our main conversation for tonight. In what looks like a first time in a long time, a unison from state governors in Nigeria, particularly on the topic of state police. The ideas appear to have gotten some headway in the League of the State Governors. There's been a lot of disagreement, especially when it gets to the state level. That bill usually was shut down in constitutional amendment process. Well, at the conclusion of the last National Economic Council meeting, Governor Ubasani of Kaduna State, who spoke after the meeting and briefing journalists, said 36 states of the Federation have endorsed the creation of state police. Following the submission of the reports to the National Economic Council, the governor says these, when he was speaking to correspondents at the end of the 147th NEC meeting chaired by the Vice President Kashim Shettima in Abuja, Governor Sani stated that many states agreed with plans to establish state police because virtually every state had security challenges. And according to him, there are a lot of ungoverned territories in Nigeria and a deficit in terms of the number of security operatives in the country. Let me remind you of what Governor Ubasani says at that meeting.
I can say here that from what is available, virtually most of the states are in agreement with the establishment of state police in Nigeria. But today the council have decided to step down the discussion until the next council meeting, because we need to come up with a report from the secretariat. And after the report, there will be deliberation in the next meeting that is likely taking place in January. And many states are in agreement for the establishment of state police, considering the fact that virtually every state have their peculiarity in terms of the problem we're having of insecurity in our own states. And knowing fully that we have a lot of ungoverned space in Nigeria, and knowing fully also that we have a lot of deficit in terms of number of boots on ground, looking at the fact that a lot of security agencies, the police, the army, and other relevant security agencies have no personnel to cover all the ungoverned space.
It may be former in several sense, but my guest tonight, a former governor of Kano State, a former minister of education, a former senator, has come with a lot of experience in these particular conversation. Senator Ibrahim Shekarau is live for us here in our Abuja studio. It's a pleasure having you, Excellency. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shivun. It's a pleasure being here again.
Appreciate it. Perhaps one of a few governors in your class who experimented with something that looks like a state police option, which later on, a lot of state governors, because of the security challenges that the nation is facing, have now had to adopt some local measures in terms of vigilante groups and all whatnot. But the Hisbah became a big deal under your watch as Kano State Governor. Let's begin the conversation. A lot of you and your colleagues, when you were governors, never agreed on the principles of state police. There's never an agreement. At some point when that matter crossed the Rubicon, and we thought that we might be having a state police in our constitution at the state assembly levels, there was no concurrence, it was shut down. But hearing that all the 36 states have submitted their proposal, and it looks like all of them have agreed, what do you make of that particular, that stance and that stage that we are?
Well, I was I had always agreed with the view that there is need to create an outfit at the state level, down to the local government level. If you like, call them community watch, community police, call them state police. Whatever name you call them, the idea is we need to monitor our environments. Governments at various levels have the constitutional responsibility of protecting lives and properties. In fact, many people, lawyers and the constitutionally concerned people have been reminding various governments that your first and most important responsibility is to ensure the safety of our citizens and their properties. So the issue of security is the concern of everybody. But we have mentioned time without number that the current security structure has to be revisited, has to be restructured. The number shown is inadequate. The facilities are inadequate. The training is inadequate. The welfare is inadequate. A number of things, number of challenges in our security setup at the moment, particularly when you talk of our internal security watch, which is basically the cup of tea of the Nigerian police. So I have never had any problem with state or local management of the security. You see, my problem with this issue of the state security is the framing of the law that will be governing what you call the state. In fact, even if it comes to be, I would rather call it state community police. You see, if you remove this aspect of community, I have mentioned it even on the floor of the Senate when the argument came in the 9th Senate, that most people, including some of the governors, the impression they have is that we're going to have a state police, a replica of the Nigerian police with all the paraphernalia, with all the equipment, with all the weapons and all the vehicles required. I don't think this is what we require at the local level, at the state level. I will go for state community police, but in framing the law, right from the national level, there has to be properly identified criteria. There has to be uniform criteria. I once said on this particular platform that I had cause to lead a team with on the invitation of the Nigerian police when IG Mohammed was in charge, was still then in the Senate. I led a team and we produced documents. We produced the procedure, we produced the template. And at that time, I led a team. I made a very long presentation to the IG, including all his DIGs and some of the AIGs. In fact, as a result of that, I remember the IG then assigned one AIG to be the desk officer of the community policing. The Nigerian police have been advocating community policing, but the problem is we have not agreed as a nation what exactly do we want to have, what structure of the local police we want to have. I reminded us the other time we were here, we used to have the NA police while the Nigerian police was still there. And the NA police were locally recruited. So my concern is that, one, there has to be a properly defined criteria in the process of recruitment. That's why I want to emphasize the issue of the community. I still want to give the example that we have had in Kano. Call it anything. Forget whether we call it Hizbah or we call it anything. What we did was we set up a committee of elders in every ward, between 10, 12, 15 of the elders in the community. We gave them a standardized criteria and the kind of qualification and the kind of personalities that need to be recruited. We gave them a platform figure. We said every ward should go and recruit 20 responsible, young, energetic people whose credibility, whose conduct is adjudged to be above average by the very leaders of that community. A situation whereby you sit at the state level and recruit all of these things. Let the communities own them. So all of this has to be properly identified in the process of the recruitment, but no one is in doubt of the fact that we need a local monitoring of our environment.
So there are a bit of some facts that you have established.
Exactly.
One, our federal system does whatever we are operating now is insufficient.
It's insufficient.
Cannot protect us as a country.
No, not at all.
It looks like it has failed.
Well, I wouldn't want to say it has failed.
Because
it is unable. Because if you say that it has failed, it will give an impression as if all they needed was given to them, but they were unable to perform. I wouldn't want to use the word the police.
But it has been incapable,
to be fair,
of solving our problems.
Because they have not been given the wherewithal. Give them the funds, give them the facilities, give them the training. I think some years back, when was it your media or some other media that went around and reported the situation of our training institutions of the police?
Yeah, we got a flag for that. We did an investigation.
It was terrible.
And under that government, we got a flag. How did we get access?
Exactly.
How did investigative journalists got into the police,
but I understand,
police training college?
I understand with the police trust fund now, some interventions are going on in the police colleges, some improvement. But that is still below average. Unless we address these issues, it is the absence of the correct number, the correct facilities, the correct training, the correct welfare that has brought us to where we are today. So,
I'm looking at it. Let me take you one after the other.
That's right.
Because this is very important.
Yes.
When you came up with Hizbah, there are a lot of people who looked at it from a religious point of view. Some people looked at it from a political point of view. But in essence,
in the end,
what is the governance point of view, which is very critical. The lives and the livelihood of the people.
Exactly.
There are those who also will make reference to how terrorism would have destroyed Kano State. But if not because of the local effort that has held that state. Now, let's begin first and foremost. It's about the legislative and the parliamentary process that will see this through.
Yeah.
This is the first layer. If the governors, because of their power and the influence in the country, politically speaking, if they are all on the same page, is a good start.
Yeah.
What do you think might be a major setback if we are not careful to make this process go through?
I think, Sheun, this task issue is an eye-opener.
The tax reform bills.
Because it has now, because of non-wide consultations, as even mentioned by the Economic Council, we're into this crisis and problems and misconceptions and so on, and government is now going back to all that would have been done. So I think it's not enough for the governors to meet and decide there should be a state police. It should go beyond that. I think we should engage members of the public. I suggest let there be very, very wide and intensive discussion at all levels, including the legislators, including the civil societies, the communities, the religious leaders, the traditional institutions. Let there be clear understanding as to what exactly do we want when we talk about state police structure. And my advice is that while we don't have any doubt as to the need of another additional security setup at the state level, we have to be very, very careful not to run into another problem. Another example, Sheun, that I can quickly mention, look at the issue of the State Electoral Commission. It was well-intentioned.
Yeah.
The idea was to devolve all of these powers down the line, and before you know it, unfortunately, people are being, it is being abused to the point that people are now asking, let's scrap. And I think the newly proposed amendment, I haven't the details, is suggesting the scrapping of the local government, the State Electoral Commission to come back to have a national. I think this is a very serious setback. Yeah. I'm opposed to changing it, but we must take some measures. Unfortunately, it is attitudinal. If you get the correct leadership and the correct architecture, the correct framing of the law, that's why I said there has to be uniform structure, uniform law at the center. And that was exactly what we advised the Nigerian police when they invited me and my team to give them an example of what we did in Kano. And it worked.
Yeah, because you're a retired teacher. I don't know whether...
I'm still one.
I don't know whether you know how to handle the chalk any longer. And how the blackboard, how it works these days. Well, I want this also to be very educative and also very informative so that our viewers can glean. I put this together because I'm also a student of federalism.
Exactly.
I had to study in some part of my study. I did comparative analysis of federal states. And part of it is also whatever we hold together, a democratic state should have some principles behind it. Exactly. And this is something I found out. Yes. I looked at the structure of policing in typical federal systems, and this is what I found out. Yes. There are layers of how the policing system would be. At the federal level, this is what you will typically find in most federal states. One, as you see on your screen, at the federal level, the federal policing will oversee national and interstate law enforcement.
Exactly.
They will focus on crimes that transcend state boundaries or affect national security.
That's right.
Their focus is very straightforward, and of course, you know they know their boundaries and then their duties, and it's clearly stated in the law. At the state level, they operate within the boundaries of a specific state, and the federating unit.
Yes.
They handle regional crimes, assist local police, and enforce state laws.
Exactly.
Now, at the local level, which in some places they call them county. In Nigeria, we call it local government.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the community center law enforcement, addresses neighborhood level crimes and maintains public order.
Yeah.
Those are the strata in my own study of federalism.
That's right.
And this is what works in most of the federal states, except in Nigeria, where we have a decentralized policing system.
Yes.
Now, I now did a bit of a comparative analysis of 3 federal states.
Okay.
United States, Germany, and Nigeria.
Yes.
what I found out is that the policing model in the United States is decentralized. They are federal and state.
Yes.
In Germany, they are federal and state, decentralized. Yes. In Nigeria, we have a centralized, which is a federal controlled policing system.
Yes.
In terms of autonomy of the state to take control of policing, there's a high level of control of the state in policing system in the United States and in Germany. In Nigeria, state governors, you hear them mostly saying that we are only called the state chief security officer, but they never have the powers. In terms of the federal rule, the policing in the United States have interstate and federal crimes that are focused. In Germany, they are controlling border and national security. In Nigeria, entire law enforcement system is being covered by the federal police. Now, these are the challenges that I've identified, Your Excellency. In United States, there is jurisdictional overlap. And that's why a lot of the times you see the Los Angeles police and the FBI having a clash, and sometimes they look at themselves and say, oh, come on, you have come to take over these issues. In Germany, there's a problem of coordination across the state. In Nigeria, there's a decentralization inefficiency. So this is what I've been able to take out of my own understanding and study about federal system and state policing. Now, with this experience, there is the federal, there is the state, and the local government level. From your own knowledge and understanding of local government, the state, and the federal state, what do you think is most unique to Nigeria?
Well, I think, thank you very much. Coming from what you have just explained, you see, you have said even in the United States, there are some periods of clash between the federal. This is a country that has been on this democracy for 242, 43 years. We're just starting. I think there is nothing wrong borrowing from other states, that we make it what people usually call homegrown. We pick A, B, C, D from other countries. That's about knowledge. You learn from others and then you own it up and you make it your own homegrown ideas. I think we have to be very careful not to over-rush. When you rush, you're likely to
have problems.
Crash land. So I think while we are appreciating the fact that the Nigerian police are not in any way able to cover up the entire federation in terms of policing and intelligence gathering, all we need is a setup that will complement the Nigerian police service, not to have an outfit that will appear total disengagement at the state level of the Nigerian police and total handing over of the state security architecture to the entire what you call the state police, and the Nigerian police will be onlookers. And so we are working together. You see, we have been existing as a people, as a nation, as an entity. Unfortunately, this unitary system was the accident of the military intervention along the line, and we are still trying to recover from these interventions. A lot of the governors are still behaving like military governors. I'm sure you know this. So this is the hangover we'll be carrying away from the military structure. So we have to be very careful. Even though we are operating democracy, I still believe that we must go slowly. The whole idea, Sheun, is to have people to monitor their own security around. You see, I may be sounding too overflogging this issue of the example we have had. We've tried it. The guards we had in Kano don't even carry any gun, but because we involved the community, because the recruitment was done by the community accepted them, owned them up, trusted them. Ask anybody from Kano, you'll find that the first law, we legislated it, the first law in our Hisba law was the Hisba is to complement the services of the Nigerian police. They are to cooperate with the Nigerian police. And in most cases...
What informed Hisba when you created it?
Well, we thought, I've been in the bureaucracy of the government all my life, principal for 13 years. I know the environments running from different parts of the state. I was in the system, a permanent secretary for 7 years, 3 or 4 of it in the cabinet office. So I I've seen the global situation. And of course, I told you, I am a product of a policeman, NA policeman. I have an idea at my early age what the NA police were doing and how much they were doing in covering the environment, the security, the intelligence. So I put all this together, and I foresee that we need to monitor our environment. This idea of ungoverned areas, which area is not ungoverned? If you're a governor, the entire state is your own territory. You're governing the whole thing. I don't believe this idea of ungoverned. Every inch is supposed to be governed because we have a government in place, both local, state, and federal. So what I'm saying is, Seun, I have no problem with setting up a security structure at the state level. But the federal government still will have to oversee the structural setup. If you allow the state to go on their own, to legislate their own structure of the state police, you run into problems because most of the states will go on their own ways, and before you know it, there is chaos. A is doing something else, B is doing something else, C is doing something else. And I think there has to be the constitutional amendment that will spell out the clear national focus as to what the state police should be. And I insist it should be that word community so that people will own it up.
Absolutely.
The whole problem is in the recruitment process.
But, this is one
thing. It has to be depoliticized.
This is one thing that some of your opponents and your critics said when you were governor.
Yes.
They thought that you were going to use the Hisba against your political...
But we did not.
The question is the argument about a possible high-handedness of governors.
Yes.
Can the governor, governors have the political maturity that when they have police system in their hand, they wouldn't use it for political purpose?
That is the challenge between you and I and all the electors. Let's put in place the correct people. That's the challenge. In fact, that is exactly what our League of Northern Democrats is all out to achieve, to ensure that we mobilize the general public, to ensure that correct people. With all due respect to people in positions now, whether president, governors, local government chairman, legislators, the important thing is let's ensure we get the correct people with the correct antecedents, with the correct experience, people that will know between the right and left what governance is all about. Once you see, it's one thing to have the law. It's another thing to have the right person to implement the law. That's why I said, for now, let it be in the national constitution, Nigerian constitution. Of course, you don't have to spell every detail in the constitution, but the main framework that will guide every state to have a common structure of what you call, or I would prefer to call state community police. And then the recruitment process has to be spelled out, and every state should ensure the process is respected. What made our Hisba to succeed, Shehu, was that I insisted politics is out of it. All the elders we set up in every ward and the local government to recruit, we gave them the guidelines, and I insisted there shouldn't be any interference by any of the political parties or any office holder, from myself downwards. I've said it. In all the over 10,000 Hisba Gaza we recruited, there is none that I nominated. There is none nominated by any of the officials of our party. There was none nominated by anybody in the government. We insisted because we told the elders, don't allow any politicians to pollute this process. And when they owned it up, ask the police today. People in Kano prefer to go to the Hisba offices to report their cases, even though the Hisba is not carrying even a stick, not to talk of guns. You see, we need to generate this confidence. We need to generate this trust at the local level. And the framing of the law is where you get it, and getting the right people to do it.
Let me ask you this quickly.
Yeah.
There is the argument of the proportion on the ratio of police as stipulated by United Nations to the citizen. And we know that is highly... We use a figure of the police because the figure that we had was about 350,000 police officers governing the Nigerian territory.
Exactly.
But we now know, I mean, we are being told now that police in Nigeria have decreased by the statistics of the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics to about less than 300,000, in fact, to about 251,000.
So from bad to worse.
Yes, but now this is the question.
Yes.
We have the FRSC, the Federal Road Safety Corps, we have the NSCDC, we have the Fire Service, we have the Prison Service, we have the Customs, we have the Immigration. Let me go on to mention other law enforcement agents. We have
the traffic wardens,
the NDLEA, the EFCC, the Nigerian Immigration Service, the Customs Service, the Nigerian Intelligence Agency, the Department of State Service, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Federal Road Safety, the ICPC. All of these are law enforcement agents. But if you put these figures together, you will get a reasonable amount of number. Because if you go into other crimes, all of the roles that some of these agencies are playing have their department. Even the Nigerian police is so empowered that there is no offense or no crime that the Nigerian police cannot handle. They have the financial and financial crimes unit in the Nigerian police force, such that you will find in ICPC, in the EFCC, there are duplication of effort. In your own thinking, Your Excellency, do you think we need to start thinking right as a nation in merging some of these entities?
This is very, very necessary. This duplication, one, it is eating deep into our resources. It is eating deep into even the personnel. All of these that you have mentioned are actually services that were initially being performed by the police. And all we needed was to make sure, as we grow as a nation in terms of population, we increase their numbers, improve their facilities, improve their training, so that the training and the number will match the population explosion that we have been experiencing. Most governments that have passed have failed to address this. Do you know that if you put all of this, the Nigerian Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the police, the civil defense, and all services that carry guns, carry arms, put together, they're not up to 1 million. They're not. And I've been citing example for many years. Egypt, which is just about 80+ million, has over 1 million security officers in the name of police and all other security agencies. Just 1 million of them. We are 200+ million, and we are yet putting all the services together. That's why when people talk of ungoverned areas, I say, well, it is the government responsibility to ensure that every inch is properly governed. By increase, I made a proposal when we were in the Senate. I mentioned it the other time I came here. I submitted it to the Chief of Staff of the then government under Buhari. That look, Buhari said he will be recruiting the police 10,000 every year. Having been the chairman of the pension services in the Senate, I had the records. On the average, almost every year, about 4,000 or 5,000 policemen retire. So if you recruit 10,000, you are technically replacing half of that, because other ranks are retiring. I made a proposal. If we really want to catch up, a 10-year, 20-year plan program has to be prepared. Every year you recruit at least about 20 to 30,000 every year, and improve the training ground, so that you will be able to catch up incrementally. Every year you start with 10,000, 20,000, up to 50,000. You have to really have a deliberate program of expanding the number. But if you just take 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, forgetting that many others are retiring, and the quality is affected.
Let me quickly ask you. You've been a governor, 2-time governor as that.
Yes.
Do you think really that the governors are not really the chief security officer of their state as is presently constituted? Do they lack powers to govern their state?
That is the truth of the matter. We are called chief security officers, but the actual operators of the force take their command from the center. This is a problem. I know that is part of the difficulties many people are citing, but we solved that. that can be solved by the individual leaders. I had no problem with that because I interacted. I always call in the police commissioner, the director SS, even the brigade commander. We meet regularly. They give me the briefing. We meet every time. In fact, my security council met almost every month. We dedicated a date. So by the fact that the governor invites the security council, the fact that he relates very well with the commissioner of police and the services, the state service department, there will be no problem. In fact, there was no time when the commissioner of police refused to take my advice or my instruction because we compare notes. We agree. They give me their professional advice regularly, and we come to terms as to what kind of operations we're going to have. We assisted them where necessary with the funding, with the facilities, and I got to know this when I was in the cabinet office, when the late General Oneya was our governor. When I studied the situation, I made a memo. I submitted to him. I said, look, the Nigerian police in Kano do not have enough vehicles to move around. I made a memo, and we bought 25 patrol vehicles for all the Nigerian police in Kano. Do you know that when I called the state commissioner to come and tell me the day they will take over, I said, wait, Mr. Permanent Secretary. We have to agree as to who will fund the maintenance. I said, what are you telling me? State government is buying and giving you patrol vehicles. He said, but the funding is not there. So we also had to go into the funding, the fueling, the maintenance of the vehicles. We interacted well. So I don't think governors should have problem in relating with the security, chief security officers in the state if they really work together and have an understanding as to what they want to achieve.
Let's take a breather, Your Excellency.
Yeah.
But when we come back, more conversation as to how to govern Nigeria. You know what is happening in some part of the north.
Absolutely.
A lot of issues are happening in Sokoto, in Kebbi, Katsina. You're
Zamfara.
hearing in Zamfara. A lot of incursion from new terrorist organizations that are rearing its head. But can the federal police, the local communities in our different states, and these are the conversations we'll be having. Plus, we have one of the leaders of the League of Democrats. What does that mean for Nigeria's politics? We'll be right back, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right on the program. A former governor of Kano State, from the Ministry of Education, former Senator Ibrahim Shekarau has been speaking with us on the program tonight. Thank you so much indeed for your time. One crucial area about the state police and matter is the area of funding. A lot of states are still struggling to even pay salaries. Some of them, if not because of the increase in allocation right now, there's an increase in the FAC and in some of what accrues to some of the states. But a lot of them struggle. They cannot earn as much, they do not earn or they don't have as much to run their state. Funding might be a problem because you talk about uniforms, you talk about arms and ammunition, you talk about operational, you talk about overhead, a lot of issues with training and retraining and all of that. How do you think they can fund? Should the law be put in place? Can some of the states, and no state is equal in Nigeria,
No.
Some are richer than the other.
Yes.
How do they fund?
Well, I think my take in this is that while the idea, the framework is put in place, the state should be allowed to move at their own pace. And there should be some guidelines as to what the minimum should be at the local level. You know, I kept citing our example. When we set up the guards, and we said, let it be a maximum of 20 per ward, a minimum of 10 to 15. So I think with the fact that states are not all at par in terms of funding, in terms of their resources, both what they get from the center and the internally generated funding, I think whatever the law is framed, there should be some opening to allow the state to move at their own pace and to allow the state also to decide what will be the remuneration locally of the recruited community police that will be recruited. Otherwise, if you make it again as a national minimum wage, I am sure many states will find it difficult to operate. When we came on board, I did the Hillsborough Guards, of course, we introduced what we call allowances to them. Most of them, during the recruitment exercise, we had a lot of volunteers who were ready in each ward to contribute. In fact, some of them were even workers, some very qualified senior people, some even university graduates. They offered because they operated on shift. We had some of them that were permanently on evening shift, people who go to work. You see, when we transfer the whole into the community, come and see the acceptability. People were offering to give the services. In fact, some offered free. They were recruited. We were giving them, we asked the local government to give the local community police 10,000 at that time, of course, that we are talking about 20 years ago. And then the state level, we have state officers, we're paying them between 15 to 20,000 because they happily accepted this because they were doing it to serve the community. I think the framers of the law also have to be very careful in ensuring that we don't jacket them into the Nigerian salary scale system. Then there will be the problem of poor payment, failure to pay the salaries. Before you know it, the state police will be on the street again demonstrating for non-payment and so on. So I think all this has to be sorted out. And I mentioned this on the floor of the Senate. I was asked how we were handling it. I told everybody the way we were doing the funding. That was what interested the IG then and invited me with my team. We spent many weeks. Right now at the police headquarters, if you check, what they have on record as the document of community policing was produced by me and my team. Unfortunately, I told the IG, if you don't get the buy-in of Mr. President and the governors, our last suggestion to them was that this document we have produced, which is supposed to be nationally operated, tell the president to prepare a 2-3 day workshop. Himself will be there, the governors will be there, their police commissioners will be there, all other security agencies will be, so that everybody that will be involved will understand the concept of community policing, the concept of local watch, and so on. And then you move on to the states. It took us a year and a half before we started the operation. After the recruitment, we didn't allow them just to go into work. We were taking them in segments, giving them training. We even developed training manual. And we make sure different ranks of the Hillsborough Guards were given training, how to handle issues. There was no issue that they were not handling. Today, if you visit the Hillsborough headquarters in Kano, you will be surprised what is going on. People will be there bringing their cases, they are attending to some. In fact, it has reduced the number of court cases that we're having. People prefer now to go to the Hillsborough offices, including what you may call non-indigenous or whatever. They prefer to go there. There is process of justice establishment in there. So it's not about carrying weapons through coercion and so on. Intelligence gathering forms about 60 to 70 of the success of any security agency. And there is no way you can collect intelligence without involving the community.
Let me ask you.
And there is no coordination between the states.
You know a bit of President Bola Tinubu.
Yeah.
And you see some of these policies in the area of LG autonomy, now in this area of state policing under his leadership at the center. Yeah. State governors are in unison on this matter.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's got his buy-in on this? Do you think that, because there's some kind of restructuring of some sort?
No, I think, yes, I'm sure President Bola Tinubu will subscribe to this idea. But I think it goes beyond that. I kept referring us to the current issue on the table. You see, before you go on to that, after getting the framework by the Economic Council, by the governors, let this framework and the idea, the blueprint of what they mean by the state police be thrown out, not only to the legislators, but to all segments of our society, so that people will subject the framework into thorough scrutiny and discussion, so that suggestions will be made. I have mentioned areas of, recruitment process. How do you recruit the people? You have just raised the issue. How do you fund the whole idea? What kind of training are you going to put in place? Of course, they cannot have any training outside the police training colleges. Are they ready to give them all this training? You have to think of the parity between the states and the idea of every state starting at its own or moving at its own pace. What number can you take in that you can accommodate and give them the welfare? Before you know it, if you don't care, if you don't check all of this, after about a year or two, there will be problems and the system will collapse.
Let me take you quickly.
And then coordination between the states.
Yeah.
I made an example last time I came here. Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto are not working together in attending to these security challenges. They're not.
There needs to be a handshake.
Absolutely.
A regional cooperation.
Exactly. You see,
to be able to check some of these
neighboring states. And I think when I raised this, somebody said that Kaduna State government, the former Kaduna State government, Rufai, was complaining that when he advanced the idea of all of them working together, some of the governors were not cooperating. So I think it is the center now. Mr. President has to play a very, very big role in coordinating all of these things by bringing the governors together. Let there be some understanding. Let there be some cooperation. If we get all the governors and all the states on the same page, then we will be moving somewhere.
You and some of your friends came up with League of Northern Democrats. What is this about? Is it about a power change in 2027?
No. I think we made it very clear. It's not necessarily about 2027. It's not about 2030. It's not about any dedicated period. And it's not about any individual. It's not about any party or political party. Number one, we came together to address a continuous lamentation of the problem. And we decided to look inwards. Many people have been saying, are you a political party? No. We said we have already voted ourselves out by calling it a regional thing. The Constitution does not recognize any regional party or any tribal party or religious party. We identified, Seun, about 4 or 5 areas of concentration. Number one, we are advocating a review, a scrutiny of our leadership recruitment process. With all due respect, most Nigerians are already dejected with the kind of leadership we are having at various levels. We want to enlighten the general public to really scrutinize, and we challenge the political parties to also review the process of bringing out those who will be aspiring, those who will be in the end be presented for election into office. We have to look at the antecedents, their experiences, what they can offer, what they have offered in the past. That's one. Number two, we are concerned with the unity as well. Because if you get the right leadership, but you don't have the unity of the people among the people that are being governed, you still have a problem. Number three, we said we will be talking about the security. Just as you're talking about now, we are interested in knowing the security architecture at various states, the cooperation between the states and so on. Then number four, we are addressing the issue of economic well-being of the community, of the society. If you don't have the wherewithal to govern, the resources, then you get nowhere.
How is this different
the issue of education?
How is this different from the Harawa Consultative Forum?
Well, we are working together. You see, we have written to all of them and we have been meeting. We are all working together. There's nothing wrong in the proliferation of a number of interested groups, but in the end, we will be working together. We share common aspiration, we share common concern, and our belief is that one day we will be meeting. We are not moving as a parallel groups. We are working together from different perspectives, from different angles. One day, I assure you, we're already talking together. In fact, the leadership of the various organizations, some couple of weeks ago, our leadership in the league met with the leadership of the ACF. And interestingly, again, a number of us are into all these other groups. Some of us are in the ACF. Some of us are in the Northern Elders Forum.
Yeah.
Some of us are in the Middle Belt Forum, and several others. And therefore, we as a league were saying, okay, let's get the leadership of each of these groups come together. We will not be surprised if one day we come up with a single body that is talking of the same focus, the same attention. And we are reaching out to our colleagues in the southern part of the country. We're already comparing notes. As Obasanjo gave us the challenge when we visited him, Gawan also mentioned the same thing. The concern is all over. So all we're doing now is like charity beginning at home, and that's what we're doing. But in the end, the concern of each of these 4 or 5 issues is a concern of virtually every part of Nigeria.
As a northern leader, as a leader in Kano State, and as also a political force in this country, is there a disenchantment about the Tinubu leadership or government in the northern region of the country, and why?
I think, I don't think I will reduce it only to the north. The last protest of the end of bad governance is a clear message. The agitation was not a regional thing, was not a state affair, it was a national matter. So I think it's a very clear message to the president and the federal government that, look, the Nigerians are saying, please go back to the drawing board and reassess what you are giving us. I still recall what Ex-Kano used to argue, that no matter how good your programs are, no matter how good your policies are or your project, so long as in the end it does not translate into easy access to food, it's rubbish. This is all we're saying. And this is not limited to the north. The inflation, the hardship is not just limited to the north, it's all over the place. So I don't have, my assessment is not necessarily based on the outcry from people up here in the north. It's based on the outcry by Nigerians across board.
So it's not about Tinubu as a person.
No, not at all.
It's about the state of the country as it is right now.
If it were about Tinubu, we wouldn't have written to Tinubu. We wrote to the president.
Did he reply you?
No, not yet, not to my knowledge.
But the question is...
But we have acknowledgement from his office of the chief of staff that our letter had been received. We had acknowledgement from the office of the vice president. Our letter has been received. We've written to all the governors. We've written to all the prominent traditional rulers in Nigeria, prominent Islamic and Christian scholars. So we are not about anybody. We are not ganging up, so to say. It's not a gang up against any government.
But what about this conversation as power returning to the north in 2027?
No, I think my argument has always been, you see, there has to be, but I always prefer to use balancing rather than zoning, rather than zoning or rotation or whatever. There has to be some balance. Up till today, in America, of 242 years of democracy, they still are concerned about balancing. They do. So all we need to do in Nigeria is to do some balancing to carry everybody along.
There are those who will say, the North, if you look at from 1999, would have spent about 11 years or thereabout. And after 2024, by 2027, the South would have spent 17 years. But I mean, it was the death of former President Yar'Adua that caused that. What in your own right do you think will be fair from 2027?
No, I think, you see, I don't want to be part of those counting number of years, whether Northerner has done this year, Southerner has done this years. We've seen Northerners, we've seen Southerners governing, and there isn't anything special about where you're coming from. My concern is, who are you? Who is it?
The SGF, Your Excellency, said that the North should wait, let Tinubu contest again, or the South go in 2027.
Well,
do you agree with that kind of statement?
I'm not in the management of the ACF, and I don't think I totally agree with that. My concern, what we're advocating now in the league, is credible leadership.
No matter where that comes from, it could be in the North. So you think that 2027 should be thrown open? North, South, any political party should throw
all the parties should come up with their planning in a situation whereby they make the best of choices. It's a matter of the political parties. But for Nigerians now to decide if a political party say A is my candidate, whether it's an incumbent or not, B say this is my candidate, our concern is let's look at the candidates produced by the parties.
All right.
And our challenge is that all the parties should give Nigerians correct candidates so that we have the best to choose from. But if you give us all evils,
we left to choose the best of the evils.
Choosing the best out of the evils.
Thank you so
our
much.
concern is to get the credible people to be elected, not whether they are from the north, whether from the south. Of course, you cannot ignore the issue of the balancing.
All
the
right.
balancing, not necessarily counting on the number of years, not necessarily back-to-back changing or rotational. PDP had the rotational presidency in their constitution, but it was never respected.
Your Excellency, I must sincerely thank you again for your time tonight. Always a pleasure having you and hosting you on some of these critical national issues.
It's a pleasure being here all the time.
Thank you so much. Ibrahim Shekarau, a former governor of Kano State, former Minister of Education, and a former member of the National Assembly. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's our show tonight, everyone. Many thanks for being part of it. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, at 7 p.m. God bless Nigeria.